I know you like to talk about what scouts are in attendance. There was actually podcast scouts in attendance to this segment. I'm afraid I might be traded to like a crime podcast or something like that, or maybe a cooking segment or something.
I think you could do a crime segment, right? You've done time.
Oh yeah, I'm guilty. I always assume they're guilty.
I always find that answer gets me out of jury duty.
Welcome to another episode of the Donut Bag, part of the Pulse Podcast Network and the PodHub Network. This episode, I talked to Dan Kingerski of Pittsburgh Hockey Now about the latest on the Penguins. We'll talk about the news he broke about the Derick Brassard getting traded. We'll also talk about Patric Hörnqvist and all kinds of other stuff. The Donut Bag starts right now. Penguins just coming off of their West Coast trip. Didn't end very well. With me to talk about it is Dan Kingerski from Pittsburgh Hockey Now. But before we get started with that, got some big news that you broke today, huh?
Yeah, we broke a little news on the website today. We've been kind of inching forward on the Derick Brassard story, in so much as Monday morning we were able to report the Penguins had changed their thinking from they could deal Brassard to they expect to deal Brassard. So, okay, we let it sit. And then a couple of the sources that we were pushing over the weekend for a bit more information came through late Tuesday night. So Wednesday morning, we were able to report that Dallas is showing some interest now.
So what would the Penguins get? I mean, obviously they need a center. Who could they get from Dallas that would make sense?
Well, I've been giving a long form answer on that. Everyone keeps asking me, and I really shouldn't speculate because I've done the initial report, and anything I speculate now could be confused as such. So bear with me a little bit. When I say the Penguins have a choice to make, they either go with Riley Sheahan as their third line center, which I know they're considering, or they have to acquire a third line center. Now, obviously, door number two. If they choose to acquire one, Dallas has two. You've got Radek Faksa, their third-line center, and dark horse candidate here, Jason Spezza.
Wow. He's still alive?
Now, I'm not saying the Penguins, at 35 years old, he makes a lot of money. There would be salary cap, configuring or rigging, or, I don't know, maybe George McPhee has some money left over in the office petty cash. He can help out again this year. I don't know where it would go. But, if the Penguins were to acquire that third line center via trade and do it directly from Dallas, obviously the third option, which might be a little more difficult to pull off, is for Jim Rutherford to make a trade with X team, let's in this case say Dallas, which sets up a corresponding move, essentially a three-team deal, kind of like he did last year.
Stupid question. Why not Teddy Bluger? Why can't he be the third-line center?
I asked that very same question of some trusted folks in Wilkes-Barre, and I don't want to speak ill of Teddy Bluger. It's not what I'm doing here, but there are questions if his offensive game at the NHL level would be good enough for third-line center role. And obviously, kind of at this point in the season, to just, kind of dump the Alka-Seltzer tabs in the water and hope to get a good result, probably a bit more of a risk than the Penguins are willing to take right now. You could see him, I don't know, with some injuries, get some NHL time this season, on a fourth line. But no, not this season will they give him that third-line shot.
I just don't understand why it didn't work with Brassard. Is it just because of his attitude? Because just he doesn't want to be labeled a third line center?
Maybe there's something in there. I hate to say it was an attitude problem because it really wasn't. I mean, here was a guy who was willing to give up his position to help the team, right? So it's not a bad attitude. It just, I don't know. I mean, if you've ever gone to work and you kind of felt underutilized, you do what you have to do, but that extra gear might not be there. He's a human being. So I recoil at maybe any bad attitude suggestions, but obviously, yeah, there's something there that no one can really put their finger on.
I mean, I know he's getting less ice time, but, you know, if he wants to be a first or second line center, he has one of the best wings in the league right next to him. It's you know, it's not a talent issue, although, you know, the third person might not be so great, but still, you know, you give him Phil and he's still unhappy. Sort of.
Well, how much time do you have? We can probably dive into that entire episode if you'd like. You know, it's not always the easiest to play with Phil Kessel. It can be an additional frustration to some guys. And Brassard, Derick is one of the guys that I've made an effort to actually speak with personally a few times. I generally avoid that only because, well, first of all, I'm awkward. But second of all, I hate to have any personal feelings ever intermingle with, you know, sometimes I have to criticize folks. But I've spoken with him a few times, and he strikes me as an intense, serious kind of guy. You know, maybe a bit like me. So, you know, you drop Phil Kessel beside him. Maybe there really is absolutely less than zero chemistry, you know?
Yeah, it sure seems that way. They sure play the way that there's that there's zero chemistry. But
I have never seen a line play more spacious hockey. I mean, they're playing hockey as if they're on an international rink, 50 feet from each other. It's painful to watch.
Would you also say that Brassard can be insurance in case Crosby or Malkin go down?
That certainly was one of the arguments that I was making last year when I was, you know, writing about acquiring Derick Brassard. I don't know. For whatever reason, and part of it could be system. Some guys just don't play as well on their toes as they do going back to the red line. I don't know. Sorry, I'm walking actually right now. I'm walking across the Clemente Bridge. Forgive me if I'm out of breath. Brassard in New York under Lane Vigneault, they always had that great counterattack forecheck and that counterattack system. It was a bit more aggressive than, say, Ottawa, but it was still the same kind of backwards then forwards. Who knows? Maybe that could be Brassard too.
Yeah. I mean, it just seems like with some players it just does not work for their system. But the Penguins have not looked good the past few games. Even with Anaheim, they won, but that was a game for a while. Did they miss Hörnqvist that much?
Yes. Next question.
Yeah, exactly. I was just trying to think, you know, if you rank the players in terms of importance, I think you have, would you put Crosby, Malkin, then Murray, then Letang, then Hörnqvist?
Boy, that's a cool question. Let me think about it. You're putting Hörnqvist ahead of Kessel, I gather, huh?
Yeah.
In terms of the team chemistry, absolutely. In fact, I might put Hörnqvist a little higher in terms of team chemistry. In terms of making it all go on the ice, I'd put Hörnqvist behind Kessel in that one. but that's a good list.
Yeah, they miss him terribly. They miss what he does, and just he's like the heart and soul of the team almost. And
Well, not almost. I talked a little bit about this on the little stuff that I do for, our outlet. And think back to November when the Penguins were just getting shellacked. Night in, night out, bad effort, sloppy play, just couldn't dial it in. It was, I don't know if you're old enough, those of us who didn't have cable growing up, you had to smack the TV and wiggle the antenna, try to get the channels to come in. The Penguins were like that. No matter what they did, no matter what channel they went to, they just got, the snow on the TV. Well, it was Hörnqvist who stood in the middle of the room every day and every night and said, this will turn around. One shift. Who's going to do it? It elevated his status in the team. I think he became much more a part of their heart this season than he has been. Even you think back to the Stanley Cup winning goal and how important he's been over the years. I think he really cemented himself as part of the core this season. And so when you lose him and you lose that guy who can stand there and kick you in the butt, but also say, we can do this, you go out west, the time change, the sunshine, the weather, intensity typically does wane a little bit for an Eastern Conference team, especially one from a city where you get 37 days of sunshine. So there's a lack of intensity kind of naturally. And so when they missing Hörnqvist and, combined with the West Coast, it's been a cocktail for misery, quite frankly.
it also happens when they go to Florida. That's such a...
Yeah, exactly. You get the hell out of Pittsburgh, and you're like, this is nice. Oh, we have to go play hockey. Okay.
Yeah.
Not everyone's Sidney Crosby who sits, who just waits for the next opportunity to play.
Yeah. He is such a hockey nerd. But about Hörnqvist, I mean, it sounds like there's some legit concern whether or when he's going to come back, and like how many times are you going to get hit? And like I heard you mention, if you just get a puck to the face and that's giving you a concussion, that's really scary.
Yeah, I have to be careful because, again, I don't want anyone to construe as if I have some inside information or if someone has told me something. It's no. This is simply a knowledge of the concussion medical field. Having been through a couple bad accidents a few years ago, my son got, scrambled a little bit going through all of this. If you're able to suffer a concussion without a real significant blow, which is kind of what I think happened to Hörnqvist. That puck to the face at the blue line was not something anyone would consider concussion-worthy, really. And the fact that he knew it right away and went right off the ice and right to the locker room and hasn't been seen since, that puts him in that prone category where he's now prone to concussions, and that's a dangerous place to be, Joe. I don't want to oversell it, or even I don't want to undersell it either. This is a real situation that everyone has to monitor. Maybe other people have to step in and intervene for the good of Hörnqvist. And I know he's skating right now or trying to skate. We're not entirely sure which that is, but I think everyone involved has to make sure that he's absolutely 100% not just cleared, but ready to go when he returns.
Yeah, it's very scary. It's I mean, just
don't forget. His countryman Johan Franzen, who had a nearly identical game to Hörnqvist, almost at the same point in his career, maybe a year difference or so. Franzen went through the same thing and within a year was out of hockey.